And welcome to the Review Tuesday. My name is Ruben, and this is my review for Netflix's new original series, First Kill. Have you heard about this? Is it one on your watch list? Do you think it's going to be as cheesy as it looks? Or maybe is it good? Let's jump in and find out. You never forget your first. Teenage vampire Juliette sets her sights on a new girl in town, Calliope, for her first kill. But much to Juliette's surprise, Calliope is a vampire hunter. Both find that the other won't be so easy to kill, and unfortunately, way too easy to fall for. Now, if you're rolling your eyes hearing that synopsis, then this is probably not going to be the series for you. Just watching the trailer for this, which I did last week, if you go to the comment section, you'll see how it's not diverse, it's just split. There's those that are really looking forward to this and those that are not. There's going to be a camp of people that talk about wokeness. This is a Romeo and Juliet series. 100%. It's a modern telling of that, and you have a gay couple. Best friend's gonna be gay themselves. It's gonna be diverse in multicultural actors. Do think some people are gonna now say that this is forced, and some of this does feel like it's forced. I do wonder why the vampire hunters are all African American and the vampires are all white. Just wanted to mention at the beginning, there is definitely going to be those in this camp that will not handle the cringe and will go like, this is so woke, I can't handle it. If that is your gut instinct, then you shouldn't be watching this series. So nevertheless, let's jump in. So there's 8 episodes, rounding about 45 minutes apiece, and I have to admit, I wasn't on board with this series within the first episode. The teenage angst, the terrible scripting, terrible dialogue, and terrible acting, and thought, you know what I do like is a vampire series with interesting lore. And this series does have it. It's very different to the normal vampire lore or hunter lore that you probably have seen. So they are trying to do something different with this series, which I appreciated. There are things here that I wasn't expecting. It's not just vampires and hunters. There are supernatural entities, and that, for me, makes it much more interesting. So the prosthetics of the monsters, of the supernatural entities that you get, are interesting to look at and don't look terrible and are worth kind of thinking about what more they could do with this series. Unfortunately, they don't dive too much into that. In fact, there's a story at the end of this series that I thought was much stronger, the stronger story, rather than the love story between the Romeo and Juliet, in this case Juliet and Juliet, or Juliet and Calliope. That was okay, and I didn't mind them. There is a lot of stilted dialogue, so the acting at times with some of the characters, especially on Calliope's side, are difficult to get around, to sink your teeth in, excuse the pun, because they make the brothers of this one family just like your typical brothers, like such caricatures of the brother that is angsty, or I'm a hunter and I'm buff and I'm gonna be gruff, and therefore, and there isn't a lot there to them, like more than what you get face value, not until the end, and which is why I was saying that there's a decent story there. Episodes 7 and 8 is really where the story starts to get good, where you care about the characters. But for me, it took me a long time to get emotionally involved or care about these characters until I reached those episodes. Now, what kept me going was the lore inside of it, and I actually thought that the vampires were more interesting than the hunters. The hunters themselves have a group of people, you know, like a core group, like an established monarchy that say this is how we do things, and they have people that they answer to. This is a hunter family that also has people to answer to. The vampires in turn also have their monarchy, and so it's very juxtaposition, but also very much the same, very Romeo and Juliet. In fact, there is a scene that is Romeo and Juliet, and it's mentioned a couple of times. So if you're thinking, Ruben, you're just saying that because there's a slight connection. No, it's totally Romeo and Juliet, but a modern version of that. Thankfully, you don't get too much time in the high school, and there's some stuff that I could just totally have just avoided, like some of the romance and the time that they spend too much with the teenage angst. But that's is my perception. I totally get that this is a younger demographic aimed at young teens and those that will like vampire series. Now, I like the supernatural, and I even like bad, cheesy vampire series or films, but it's the dialogue that feels like just terrible in places, and some of the acting, probably because the dialogue they've been given, I found really difficult to watch. So I'm in two minds with this series. There are moments where the core idea and the things that you see, the monsters, the stuff that is in the background that is very interesting, and then those last 2 episodes I was like, oh, okay, there is something here for me to like, that I kind of want to know what's going to happen next. It does leave it open for another series. This is obviously they're thinking that there's going to be much more. So if it gets cancelled here, people are going to be pissed because there's a lot going on that they haven't come to terms with. The story does get much more interesting the latter half. So probably episode 5, 6, 7, 8, you're going to be much more interested. The 4th episode is kind of like young love, kind of getting to know. They're setting up the world, they're setting up the law. There are some things for me that I just didn't get, like why some vampires don't have strength. A person that is a vampire for a long time, or even a new vampire. Normally there are some core rules about vampires, and there was one vampire couldn't even pick up a body. I was just like, what? That doesn't... Sorry, I've cut the grass today and my eyes are super itchy. Where was I? Yes, so there's like these vampire rules that I just didn't quite get. It doesn't look like the vampires are fast either. So I was expecting the vampires to be able to do certain things that they don't do, which makes it weird. And then there are some things I was like different for the vampires, and I thought, okay, that is new lore. So they really are kind of testing the water. So don't go into the series thinking, oh, the vampires are going to be like this, or zombies are going to be like this, because they're setting up new lore, new rules, I guess to keep it fresh. It is what you think it is, except it gets better than what you think it is towards the end. Does that make sense? I'm going to give this 2 3/4 Nicolas Cages out of 5. It was leaning on the 2, but because of those latter episodes, I think it's better than the kind of the 50% mark. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I'm looking forward to what the second season is. It's always the way for me, like with these fresh, original kind of teenage angst series that there are a lot of. I feel like once you get that kind of origin story out the way, then really the meat of the story is the much more interesting story. There's a brother here that we start to get to know a little bit from the vampire side that I think has an interesting story, and that's kind of the story that I want to know about, as well as what's going on. There's a twist in the story that I didn't expect, I should have seen coming, and I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Let me know your thoughts once you've seen it. Are you excited to watch this, or are you just going to pass it by? Thanks so much for watching this, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long on Tuesday.
I'm from a lineage thousands of years old of the best monster hunters to ever walk the earth.